for backing the protests in Myanmar and asking the UN General Assembly to restore democracy. In effect, Myanmar's military rulers appear to have lost a battle for control of the UN mission in New York. The resignation also averts a diplomatic crisis, which would have seen UN member states having to make a decision about which ambassador to recognise.
Reports from Myanmar itself say police have opened fire on protesters in the second city, Mandalay, killing one person as demonstrations continue against the military coup. Footage shows rallies in towns and cities across the country despite the rising threat to protesters. 38 were killed on Wednesday. You're listening to the World News from the BBC. Nigeria, Kenya and Rwanda are beginning coronavirus immunisation programmes under the COVAX vaccine sharing initiative, the latest African countries to do so. Health workers will be among the early beneficiaries of the AstraZeneca jab in all three. In Nigeria, health officials say President Muhammadu Buhari and other senior figures will be immunised in a public effort to boost confidence in the programme. The Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has again dismissed criticism of his handling of the pandemic, saying his government has secured enough supplies of vaccines. Brazil has registered record daily numbers of deaths from the virus this week. Health services in some areas are close to collapse. Mr. Bolsonaro has urged people to stop whining. He said there was, as he put it, no point in hiding under the bed. Brazil has suffered more than 250,000 deaths. Hundreds of supporters of the Afghan political leader and former Mujahideen commander Gulbuddin Hekmatyar have marched through the capital, Kabul. They're calling on the government to implement the terms of a peace deal agreed in 2016. Our South Asia editor Jill McGivering reports.
Gulbuddin Hekmatyar and his supporters accused the government of failing to implement all the terms of the deal they signed 5 years ago, which led to them renouncing violence in return for immunity from prosecution and the chance to rejoin politics. They're also criticising the government for failing to bring peace, blaming it for the apparent lack of progress in talks with the Taliban in Doha. This week, the US envoy Zalmay Khalilzad visited Kabul, sparking debate about a possible transitional government. That's something the Afghan government has previously opposed.
Reports from Badakhshan province in northeast Afghanistan suggest the bodies of 14 people have been recovered from a collapsed sandbank. The villagers were sifting and washing sand in the hope of finding gold when the accident happened. The area is under the control of the Taliban. BBC News.
天天在一起，天天用心听，听见台北的声音。FM 93.1，幸福永远属于你。
公民总主笔，
方恩格时间。
谁当家？
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 你当家？
谁当家？
谁当家？
谁当家？我当家。你当家？我当家。到底谁当家？你来当家。
Welcome to Residence Messenger Program on Taipei Broadcasting Station, FM 93.1. Our special guest today is Nadia Wu Yahan. Well, Nadia, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much, Ross, for inviting me here. I'm very honored.
Nadia is a soccer expert, and we'll talk more about your career working in international soccer or football, as I guess some people prefer to call it, because it's so rare for someone from Taiwan to develop a career in the international football industry. And Nadia is also a former national level competitor in karate as well. So I'm going to be very careful what I say, because if I say the wrong thing, Nadia might use some of her karate skills on the program host. That'll be a little bit dangerous for me. But Nadia, before we talk about your career in international sports management and also your experience as a karate competitor, tell us a bit about your background. Where'd you grow up in Taipei?
Actually, I grew up in Xinyi area, like not unlike now, it's really prosperous, full of cinemas, shopping malls, and everything. There wasn't anything. So when I was very little, I was riding the bike around the area, and I was picking up some shrimps in the ponds with my brothers and other kids in the neighborhood. So I kind of consider myself a country kid. However, you can see the developments and the growing of the area. It's become probably the most popular areas in Taipei, I would say. So I'm very lucky to see the developments of my neighborhood.
Your home village, even though it's in the middle of the city.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I remember when I was studying the junior high school in Xinyi Guozhong, and it was very surreal that when I was walking home, I saw there was like a guy riding on a horseback and like riding towards me and asking me like if I want to go on the horseback in the middle of the road. And I didn't do that, but it was very surreal to think about it. Like from now on,
Yeah, now it's just, as you said, it's kind of the main shopping area, and maybe one day there'll even be a sports stadium that gets finished in that part of town as well. Hopefully soon.
Know.
Yeah, we'll talk more about what kind of sporting events, my big global sporting events maybe could be hosted there. But what age did you begin to train seriously for karate?
I think I was always curious about martial arts because I was very hyper when I was very young. When I was in elementary school, I was always fighting with my classmates because after school, because I would just very I would just like to wrestle because I wrestle a lot with my brother at home. So like in junior high school, there was a karate school team, and I joined it. I signed up. So that was the starting point when I really trained very seriously for karate.
Later on, you did become a very prominent competitor within your division of karate. But is that too old to start? You said you started when you were in junior high school. So for those not so familiar with competitive karate, it's a sport that people could begin at 12 years old, 13 years old. They don't need to begin at 3 years old or 4 years old.
I don't think it's too late as long as you are always active. You're always doing sport when you're younger. Like I was always very active. I was playing around. I was doing different sports. In fact, my dad actually took me to a tennis court, so we did a little bit of tennis. I think the most important thing for kids who are growing up is to try different sports, and later on they can decide what they want.
Some of us, frankly, don't know a lot about competitive karate. Can you explain the different divisions or how it's classified for those who are really doing the competition side, not just doing it casually? Tell us about the different classifications and the different types of competitions and the one that you were specializing in.
Okay, when we're starting doing karate, we didn't really specialize in any form of karate. We did like all of them. Like in general, I think you can categorize, you can divide karate as a sport into two different categories. One is it's a form of fixed movements, and another one's kumite. It's like sparring. It's like like you see like UFC or boxing, you see two people fighting each other. That's sparring. So like at the beginning of our career, we did both. It was great. And later on, I kind of just focused on sparring because it was fun to do kata, like fixed forms of movements. But I just really want to focus on sparring because it's all about speed. It's all about like dynamic and everything. It was really exciting. And on the tatami in the competition, you really need to use your brain to find a really good strategy every time when you encounter a competitor.
So that's really interesting. So it's not just about the size of your muscles, for example, right? Because you said you need to use your brain.
Yeah, I think it's very stupid. It's a stereotype that people think athletes are not smart. It's totally wrong. Actually, athletes are very smart because they have to think of a tactic when they're like in a very short span of time. For example, like a football player, if they want to score, they have to calculate in their minds like what angle, like which timing is the best to pass the ball to someone who they kind of sense probably behind them or like in front of them. They have to do that. They have to calculate in their mind like decide what's the next movement to do. So it is the same in karate. Like you also, like, apart from deciding the movements and strategy to fight against your competitor, the other factor is that you have to fight against your fear, because you're actually in a competition. You're ready to punch people. You are ready to like go physical with people, but in the meantime, you're also running a risk to be punched and to be kicked. A lot of things could happen. You never know. So you have to also fight against the fear, being hit. Let's say.
Does anyone ever ask you how many blocks of wood could you chop?
Of course, I got asked from time to time.
Yeah, and what's the answer?
Yeah, but I'll tell that I can break one block.
Yeah, you want to try breaking our table here at the radio station?
I don't want to pay for damage. No.
Why karate, though? When you first became interested, you said you were around 12, 13, junior high school-ish. Why karate and not taekwondo or one of the Chinese martial arts?
I did a little bit Chinese martial art when I was in elementary school, but the coach didn't select me as a. So
you just gave up on it because the coach didn't select you.
Yeah, I wasn't really giving up on that. I was trying, when I was young, I was trying all the possible options. And when I joined the karate team, there was actually a wrestling team, probably one of the best, and the coach won the world champion, I think. So that was a very, very important school team in the school. And anyway, so I think why karate, it has to do with a lot of factors. For example, because we had a lot of relatives, they lived in abroad, like for example, USA or Canada. So we have a lot of books bringing from America. So all the Oriental martial art references they use in the book are like karate. So it kind of just coined in my mind. And later on, we our family owned a manga store. So after school, I always went to our family manga store to read a lot of manga. And then in a Japanese manga, it's always karate. So naturally, it's a very natural thing for me to choose karate as my sport.
You said that when you were younger, before you began training in karate, that your family encouraged you to do sporting activities. You said you played some tennis when you were younger as well. But what about when you began serious training? When you were a teenager and in high school age, was your family still supportive of you going the competition direction? To be a real serious karate competitor?
I would say, because my family is quite traditional, they want their daughter to be very quiet and very naive, not be hurt or hurting anyone. And they always want me to be a music teacher, so that's why they invest heavily on me to be a music teacher by getting me to learn piano or flute and a lot of musical instruments. But at the end, I didn't really want to go to the path. I eventually chose karate. It was quite interesting. But yeah, it wasn't easy for me to do karate when my family members are a little bit more traditional. They don't want, especially when they saw me with a bandage or some bruises on my body, and when home after competition, they will be really worried, asking me what's going on. But for us, we know what's going on. We're very used to pain and all the things and injuries, so we know how to deal with it. So I do understand, being parents, they were always worried about you. So I do understand their concerns, but in the end they understand, and they because I also study at the same time. I didn't really abandon my academics, I went to university and grad school and things like that, so they were actually okay for it at the end.
Was there ever a competition where you had an injury that you came home and your family were just oh my gosh, Nadia, what happened to you? Was there ever something where an arm was broken or you had black and blue on your face? Tell us a story about an injury that really shocked your family.
Yeah, actually, so all the injuries, sometimes they're invisible. So
yeah, they're internal injuries.
Yeah, I got punched a lot in the stomach. So Yeah, but they didn't know about it, so I hide it very well. But like one time I got a black eye, and it was like they were
in competition or in training.
In a competition, they were not very happy about it. Actually, asked me to stop doing it. But I was very rebellious. I said no, I'm definitely going to do it.
Yeah. Well, why didn't you tell them? Like, well, you should see the other girl. What I did to her.
Yeah. Truly, I should take picture of that. Exactly,
besides family support, what about coaches? Were there coaches who were mentors? Did any one coach really stand out as a mentor? Because look, a lot of us, we think of karate and a lot of our stereotypes come from those Hollywood movies. And it always seems like there's a coach who plays such an important role for the karate student. What was your experience with the coaches?
It's really hard for me to just give you one name because all the coaches, they have different styles and a different philosophy of life. But I can give you an answer is that karate itself is a philosophy. So like it has a lot of different rules and regulations and disciplines that we have to follow. For example, we need to, we like the real master will never show their powers in the public. In public, they will always hide it very well. And for example, you have to be nice to your parents, your teachers, your senseis. For example, it's just part of the disciplines we're learning. So I think more or less all the coaches, they have this in mind. So I would say I'm very grateful. Like I met all the coaches in my life that all the I think my personality is coined since that moment on.
And those coaches helped you get to some fairly senior level competitions in Taiwan. You were a national team and the Zhongzheng Cup, Zhongzheng Bay. What kind of effort goes into reaching that level of competition? Are we talking about daily training for 2 hours, 4 hours, 7 days a week? You mentioned you were still going to university and graduate school as well. What's the commitment to get up to that level of karate?
First of all, it's all about time. You really need to you really need to dedicate a lot of time in the training as well as studying the sport karate. Because not only from training, you have to dedicate time not only from training but also to learning new techniques or updates of the rules of the game, etc. You just have to I remember when I was in grad school, I had to wear 3 hats. I had a job, for example, to support my life, and had to go training every now and then, at least for 4 days a week. Every time would be 3 hours, and then I had to have to keep up with my studies while in the grad school. So it wasn't really easy for me, but every time I remember when I was commuting to from location A to B, I was always thinking about this is a new move I want to this new technique I want to use, and in the next competition, how can I use it? I always have this practice in my mind as well. You have to 100% dedicate yourself to it. So it was that. I think in a way, if you don't love it, it's just really hard for you to get into that level.
So the starting point is you need to really love it.
Yeah. And then you automatically dedicate yourself to it.
What about the online world for training purposes? So when you were starting out versus today, for example, there must be a lot more materials, videos, and things that you could watch online today that a younger karate student, and you didn't have those things years ago. Yeah,
it wasn't easy because I remember we could buy all the DVDs from the competition when we went abroad to compete. We bought a selection of different competitors who used to be world champions. So they actually have their own tutorials and their highlights from their past competition. It was very we replay it 1,000 times. So now when I watched we don't use DVDs nowadays.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't even have the player for it.
Platforms.
Yeah. So it was very, very hard to get, but nowadays with YouTube and everything, it's just really easy to get. So I think the competitive level is getting higher and higher. We really need to pay more attention, and we need to be more smarter on training.
speaking of getting up to that level and being smart on training, when do you realize that it's time to stop being a competitor? Is it? What are the factors? When did that moment arrive for you that you knew that you can't really compete at that same level anymore in national level or international competitions?
I think the biggest reason for me to quit from being an athlete is injuries. So like after many years of training and competitions, it wasn't easy for me to be healthy. So for example, I got punched here and there in my body, and for example, I have like stomach problems like on a regular basis. It would happen. I would just have a stomach ache, in a very normal day. So I didn't really like it. And at the same time, I was thinking about what should I be doing after graduation, because I was in the Shida, the teacher school, and I could be a coach because I was at level A, the highest level. I had the license, and I was thinking, what should I be doing? And in the meantime, I was really curious about the international world. So in order to do that, what should I be doing? That was the question I was always asking myself every day. So after one competition, I remember it was a qualifier to be a representative team for Taipei to compete in the national game. I decided I didn't really want to do it anymore, even though I really liked it. I really loved it. I feel like karate was my boyfriend. I had to break up with it because I had to move on.
So you dumped your
dumped my
karate boyfriend.
Yeah, I dumped that boyfriend. So I decided it wasn't an easy decision, because like after that, like 1 year or two after that, I was struggling a little bit because I feel like something is empty. So I think the struggling, you actually had to adjust yourself to the decision you made in life. So that's what I learned from it. But like I have to say, in hindsight, I liked it. Like I didn't think too much. I know it was the right decision, even though I was struggling a little bit.
And then you moved into coaching, or you had already been doing some coaching, actually. What was it like coaching people who weren't much younger than you, but you were a karate coach at Taida, the National Taiwan University, and also Zhengda, Zhengzhi University. Tell us about your coaching experience in karate.
It was very funny because I started coaching when I was at the last year of my university, and then later on my grad school when I was like early 20s, mid 20s.
And you were coaching men and women?
Yeah, both. And some like really senior people came to train as well. It was easy to deal with students because they could tell like I'm good because I could overwhelm them with my skills, but the difficult part is with the schools staff members, because every time when it came to they came to the training court, they were like, oh, where's the coach? When I was standing next to them, they were like, where's the coach?
They didn't believe that somebody so young could be the coach.
And I'm as a girl as well, and they was like, oh, you're the coach. So they look like not believable, but gradually I kind of understand, because we're winning medals and we're not, nobody has got hurt or something, so it was great.
And did you ever have to put some younger student put them in their place? Did you ever have to give a put a move on an obnoxious student and throw him down? Or
I think we can talk about it after the show.
What about a nickname, Nadia? When you were a competitor or a coach, was there a nickname that you were known by? Like all these fighters nowadays, UFC, boxers, they all have a marketing nickname, right? What was your nickname when you were a competitor or a coach?
Well, we didn't really do things like that, because it sounds like junior high school students and stuff. But at the last bit of my career as a karate athlete, actually they call me like karate baby or something.
The karate baby
because I started to dye my hair in like really bright gold, which I never did before, because in karate it was not really possible. It was not really
Sounds
possible.
kind of rebellious for karate to be dyeing your hair.
But I wouldn't care too much, because I was like everybody knows everyone, because I was there long enough. Usually people don't like students or competitors to dye their hair. They don't want to look outstanding. So that's part of the karate philosophy.
You just got to fit in, look like everyone else.
Yeah, something. I was just happy with my new hairstyle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And after some coaching and your competitive career, you spent some time working in sports organizations here in Taiwan, and you had some experience with some of the bigger sporting events, like there was the Deaflympics and World Games were held in Taiwan a little over 10 years ago. What do these organizations do well? Why were those events successful?
First of all, I think it was already a right decision to make decision to bid for it, to bid the hosting right for it, and then eventually was successfully able to get it to host it in Taipei and as well in Kaohsiung. Secondly, I think it was very successful because you can see the governments, they're putting efforts on making it happen. So I'm very glad that we actually did it.
And what about the Universidad in 2017? You were working in Europe at the time, but looking at it from afar, because you were working in the sports industry at the time, what went well with those university games in 2017 here in Taipei?
Okay, I think because I was away, so I pay attention a lot to the digital engagements. I think it was done well. It really caught the eyeballs of the audience. It really shows the features and the personality of the city. I really liked it. I think the opening ceremony was fantastic as well.
And does that provide a basis for Taiwan to host future such sports events of that size?
Yes, I think like for example the university game and the World Games are actually the best size for people, like for Taiwan to host it, because it's not too big, it's not too small. If we take Singapore for example, they don't want to go for mega events. They go for like small events like youth games, like your Olympic youth games. First of all, they can raise the profile of the city. You make it more like a positive. And secondly, it's the capacity of the city state, so it's good. It's good. And the same with the three international games, like university games and things like that in Taiwan. I think it's great because it's not like Olympic Games. It's like a super mega event. So it's like really consume and you will receive the governments will receive a lot of criticisms like from the public for sure. So like it's great that it can raise the profile of the country, the city, and it doesn't really create too much burden to the government, so it's great.
Well, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll continue talking about international sporting events and Nadia Wu, our guest's career in international sports and football. You're listening to Resonance Messenger on Taipei Broadcasting Station.
我实在很糟糕，胸前的排骨好像平交道，被别人欺负，说话又没有人鸟，所以我决定去学跆拳道。说我的条件非常的好，辛苦了多年，终于被他找到。他教我毕生绝活200招，就算是李小龙也打我不倒。 连线宁静的一个夜。我妈妈带我来到纽约，现在要回来出唱片。麻烦大家上个脸。
如有长照服务需求、长照特别扣除额问题，请拨打1966长照专线，5分钟内通话免付费。一通电话让长期照顾管理专员协助申请长期照顾服务及解答长期照顾特别扣除额相关问题。以上内容由台北市政府卫生局提供。
球不开车，黄色嘟嘟安全多。应酬喝酒不过量，安全回家最上道。爸爸要平安回家哦。
喝酒不开车，开车不喝酒哦。让我们一起尊重生命，拥抱亲情。
亲爱的朋友，您还在吸烟吗？快拿着健保卡到戒烟门诊，或拨打戒烟专线0800636363。提醒您，最近兴起的电子烟、加热烟，因为没有浓浓的烟臭味，就被认为无害。其实已经证实，新兴烟品都有二手烟及三手烟的危害，甚至还有爆炸的风险。我是义工蔡依林，所有烟品都 get out。我拒烟，我骄傲。
我是指挥中心疫情监测组组长周志浩。校园请落实防疫措施，请家长注意，孩子发烧或身体不舒服时，赶快就医，并且在家休息。也请大家共同配合，保持教室通风，使用空调时对角要各开一扇窗。餐点分配请由固定人员执行。打赛前请量测体温，清洁双手，佩戴口罩。搭乘学生交通车或大众运输时，也请记得佩戴口罩。
有政府，请安心。资讯由疾管署提供。
家己电台吼，家己主持咧。大家好，我是郭文哲，我伫台北广播电台。
谁当家？
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 你当家？
谁当家？
谁当家？谁当家？
当家？我当家？你当家？我当家？我当家？到底谁当家？你来当家。
Welcome back to Residence Messenger on Taipei Broadcasting Station. Our guest today is Nadia Wu Yahan, who is not only a competitive karate athlete, but also an expert on international football, who worked many years in Europe in the international football industry and is now back here in Taiwan. Nadia, speaking of football, you before you went to Europe, you did work a bit for the Chinese Taipei Football Association. What are the challenges with improving either the school level, the younger level, or the national team level football teams here in Taiwan?
It has to do with a lot of factors. If we compare like Taiwan to European countries, for example, like Italy or Iceland, Iceland was a huge success, and in the Euro 2018, I think, because they defeated England, a very old like football. They invented, they invented football, but like I really got defeated by Iceland. So like if you like, however, I think the major difference is the culture thing. So there's no football culture in Taiwan. Like in Europe, for kids when they're very young, they just started playing like football on the streets with their friends, and when they go home, they want to go to school, they talk about football. So actually football is part of their school.
Because every time the World Cup comes around every 4 years, there's always some country that's either small size geographically or small size population that does really well. And whenever that happens, I'm always wondering, well, Taiwan is 23 million people. Taiwan has money. It's a wealthy society. Why can't Taiwan develop a really successful football squad?
Yeah, it's possible if you look at Japan as well. Like Japan wasn't really great in football in before the 80s, 90s. But gradually, Dentsu, as the marketing biggest TV broadcasting agency in the world, they were like actually behind the movements of football in Japan. They started to commercialize their assets they have. For example, the national team, the tournaments and everything. They're just trying, because you know Dentsu is a commercial entity. They're driven by commercial values. So behind the football association and everything, with the push from Dentsu, it's becoming like a success. And the government also did some renovation as well to also improve the developments of the sport and in the country as well. I think Japan's the best scenario that can look into it. For Taiwan.
Why can't that happen here? What's still stopping it? Is there just a lack of desire to spend the money by the corporate world as well as the government, or are parents just reluctant to let their kids play enough soccer, or is there something else that's stopping this?
Yeah, I think the topic. Well, we can talk about this like on and
for hours.
Yeah, like if we can talk about this for a year, we'll never end. But like in short, I think the education system and how people view sport in Taiwan, and there's so many distractions as well. Like it's not only football, you got baseball, basketball, and they're more popular because they're more Americanized sports, and then while like football is more European. So that's the huge differences here. Like, and at the end, I think another factor is that you don't know where you can be, what you can be after that. You know, like all you can choose from is like to be a coach or to be a teacher after your career. But meanwhile, if you're a basketball player or football player, like a baseball player, you can play in a professional league in Taiwan. So it's actually more attractive for people who are participating and like seriously in the sport. So it's just another thing that we can think about.
You mentioned basketball. That's another area, or another sport of some frustration because, again, other countries with a small population, sometimes their basketball teams are able to do well. What's holding back Taiwan's basketball program?
Again, I think it's the same. Like I think what my experiences at the football association probably can apply as well in any other governing bodies, sports governing bodies in Taiwan. I think there's a lot of things we can like basically do is to commercialize the whole governing body. So if you look at a professional sports entity, for example, a club, it's always more efficient than in the football federation. It's because clubs need to hire players to play for them to win the cup, to win the title. While the first and foremost objective for governing sports by governing body is to develop and popularize the game. So the objectives are different. But however, if you commercialize the government body, it will really definitely help to grow the game as well. Because if you want to grow the game, you need to organize a lot of activities. You have to spend money on developing the talents and grow everything. Then where does that money come from? and the government doesn't really fully subsidize every single activity. So like, I think the government doesn't really have the obligation to do that either. So as a result, I think the sports governing body should be thinking about finding funds for their activities and to make it more efficient.
Do you expect there to be any dramatic change, though? You identified sort of what the pathway would be, but do you expect that to actually happen? 4, 5, 10 years from now, will there be a better football program or a better basketball program for Taiwan at the national or the international level?
It's I mean, in the short run, in the short term, it's not possible, to be honest, because it's just, this is not the priority for Taiwan. This is not, and like there's so many things you can utilize, you can leverage football for in terms of international politics or like advertising as well. But in terms of developing the game in Taiwan, I don't think that's the priority. So I don't think that will happen in the short time. But when I came back last year, and I can see that it's been a really great improvement with all the great excellence management from people around the country to dedicate themselves to grow the game. I'm very touched by their effort.
Your expertise in international football, you began to develop it by getting a master's in football. Tell us about, you got a master's from that's sponsored by FIFA. I think a lot of people would be surprised to know that there is such an academic program to actually study the business of football. Tell us a little bit about the FIFA master's degree.
Yeah, but to everybody's surprise, actually there is a lot of sports program that concerns majorly in football, because football is such a big game. So like when I was studying in the program, some guest speakers say there is only 2 sports in the world. One is football, and the other is the others. It's called the others. So it's kind of like football and other sports. So it's only divided into two fields. So you can see like how influential football is to all the countries. So why choose to study in this program is that this is actually, apart from the fact that it's focuses on only like majorly on football, it's one of the best sports programs in Europe as well as in the world. So when I was studying there, he won the first place for the best sports program in Europe as well as in the world. So like certainly it was the best choice. Secondly, because we the school only choose around 30 students each year from from every corner of the world. For example, like we got 28 students in our class, and there were like 22 nationalities, so you can see like how international it was. So because of that, like people really developed a very close connection with each other in the class, as well as with other alumni as well. So like the majority of our alumni work in sports, like international organizations or clubs. For example, the most famous one is FIFA, UEFA, and the International Olympic Committee. And like, for example, me used to work in a football club and things like that. So when some if I receive some request, for example, from the government saying, we want to sponsor FIFA World Cup, or we want to do a collaboration with FIBA, the World International Basketball Association, I will be able to connect within like very short amount of time. And like you don't really need to go through all the procedure. Like we can just make a phone call or just send you an email that we just can make the connection very easily.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to ask you a difficult question. When you were at the FIFA Masters, did they say you're from Taiwan, or did they say you're from Chinese Taipei? Because that's the official name, right, for the Taipei, the Taiwan soccer teams.
It's a bit sensitive, I have to say, but they understand. They understand. Like when I was applying for the course, actually, there wasn't even like Taiwan on the
no option to say that.
There Taiwan. Was like which country you from. Like there is no option for Taiwan. So I was like, hey, I wrote them like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. And they was, I'm sorry, but they understand. But I can tell you another interesting story is that when I was living in Italy, we went to watch we like as colleagues, we went to watch the national team qualifiers, the Italian national team playing against another team. So I was buying the tickets from the online website. And they will have to ask you your details because there are a lot of hooligan and fighting incidents and crimes like in a football match, around the football match. So they have to understand like who you're from, like, you know, all the contact details so they can like track you down. So when I was like, they asked me like where I'm from. Like there is no Taiwan. It wasn't even like Taiwan, China. There wasn't Chinese Taipei anything from the Italian Football Association's system. So I wrote to my friend, like very close friend who used to work for the Italian Football Association. Said, hey, what's going on? Like, no, make some improvements. And the next day they added Taiwan into the list.
Wow, this is a big accomplishment for Taiwan, recognized by the Italian Football Association. Thanks to you.
Yeah. If you are going to watch a national team match, you know, like you find Taiwan there, it's because of me.
Well, thank you. That's a really positive outcome. You mentioned you were working in Europe, and we should share with the audience that you were working in Torino for a very prominent football club, happens to be called Juventus, one of the most prominent clubs in the world. What was that like, you know, being a young lady from Taiwan working at such a well-known football club?
It was quite a surreal thing to me because when I was in grad school in Taiwan, I actually wrote a thesis about the Juventus because it was around 2006 when Italy won the World Cup, and there was actually a scandal regarding Juventus. So it was my case study. Yeah, I did. And up and finishing my thesis, I was like, oh, it would be great to work for this club. And eventually I got to work for this club. So
and some of the things you did with Juventus were related to marketing the club and the players in Asia and China, Japan. What are some of the interesting projects that you worked on?
It was quite interesting. For example, we did some interviews with the biggest state-owned media outlets in China. For example, the CCTV, when we went to play Italian Super Cup in Shanghai, China. So we got CCTV to interview Gianluigi Buffon, the legend goalkeeper in the world as well as in Italy, probably like the best one in history in Italy. It was like a very, very interesting experience for me because I was just starting my career in Italy. Like I remember the player Buffon, he was very nice and he was always like answering all the questions from the interviewer, and it was probably one of the best experiences I had with the club.
And what about the fans in Asia? You know, since you were responsible for helping to develop the club's market, what's the knowledge level for the fans in Asia? I mean, how familiar are they with?
They are very familiar with the club.
The same as Europe.
They're more familiar with the club than I do actually, because they just follow the club everywhere they go. Also in order to do the marketing and develop the fan engagements in Asia, I got to know a lot of fans around, especially in East Asia, like China, Japan, and they are always looking at me like, oh, you're God or something, oh, you're Asian, but you work in this club. So it was like I wasn't bragging, like I was always very. I didn't like they always look up at me like, oh, I want to be you, and I want to be working for this club, but like I wasn't really selected and things like that. I was just okay, but.
And what about marketing a football club? How does that differ from marketing other products, other consumer products or food products? What's something that those of us who are not in the industry wouldn't understand about how you market a football club or a football player?
I think first of all, it's not about it's a brand, but it's not a brand. It's a passion. Like if you go to Europe, people really will die for it. Like there is when there is an important game, like for example, like Juventus against when I was there, we were in the Champions League game. It was like a knockout stage, and I could see they were like they deployed policemen with the dogs and the horses. They were like on horseback, as well as the military men as well. So they actually deploy people like to separate fans from different teams. So otherwise we would like really got into fights. You can see like they actually love it from the bottom of their heart, and with the life they would die for it. So I'm sure like you wouldn't die for Starbucks. or McDonald's, I guess. Like, so that's a major difference. And the other thing is, if you want to sell the brand, like a football club brand, and for example, like Apple, essentially it's a bit different. Like for example, like for Apple, their main business revenue probably comes from the product itself. But like for a sports football club, it can come from different streams. It could be the match itself. So you sell match tickets, and you do advertising around it, and you do hospitality and merchandise. You know, merchandise actually is another stream. And then off the pitch, you get to sell your post. Like for example, you're Apple and you want to advertise. So if you want to advertise on Barca's, FC Barcelona's social media platform like Facebook, which they have like 100 million followers, it's very effective, then you have to pay for it. So it's part of it. So you don't want to like advertise on Apple's Facebook. It's just not right. It's just not the right thing to do, the marketing campaign. And then in the meantime, you can have the football clubs to sell their licensing rights to create a football school, like a soccer school elsewhere. So just like there are different business streams by utilizing the brand power.
And now you're back in Taipei and you're operating your own sports marketing consultancy, Fortitude. What are some sporting events upcoming that either fans or the commercial world should pay attention to here in Taiwan?
Yeah, I think because the world is about to become normal again with the vaccination coming in line. We like in terms of football, we can pay attention to it because the Olympic qualifier probably will come up soon, and like our national team will be competing as well. And apart from football, you get the real brand new P League, the basketball league. I know from the look of it, I think it's done a really great job. I really loved it. I will probably go check it out myself.
Any quick advice for young people in Taiwan who want to get into the international sports industry?
Like I said before, you have to love it. You have to love sport, and once you love it, you can do anything for it. You know what to do.
Well, on that happy note, Nadia, I want to thank you for coming on to the show today and sharing your knowledge of the international sports marketing industry and your own personal experience, both as a karate competitor and working in international football. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
You've been listening to Residence Messenger on Taipei Broadcasting Station. Have a great